Ongoing investigations have found that education authorities in London have destroyed records of children being educated in illegal Jewish faith schools. The reports have shown that over 1,000 children are missing from the school system in London and are also at risk of abuse in Orthodox Jewish faith schools. So the striking thing here, though, is that the Department for Education in London, as well as the Hackney firm, have destroyed all evidence, and they've known this for 6 years, about these illegal schooling for students. For 6 years, they've just kept it under the rug. They had a meeting with the legal school system in London, and that school system said, you know what, destroy this evidence, we're gonna threaten you otherwise. So pretty much what's happening is, you know, these students from the ages of 13 have been taken out of regular school into these illegal schools, which they're not being regulated by the government, and are under harsh circumstances. I mean, they're learning 13 hours a day of just one specific subject, which is Yiddish, which is a language. They're not learning English, they're not learning math, they're not learning science. So they're graduating and not being able to get jobs or secure jobs. I mean, the conditions are horrible, they're getting beaten. Independent and BBC both investigated this story, and one anonymous source actually kind of came out and said a little condition. We have a quote. She goes, "I was beaten physically by teachers and saw children beaten on a daily basis. We were hit with all sorts of objects. They had sticks, which were color-coded for different types of bad behavior, and we would hit with them. A red stick for one transgression, a yellow stick for another. I saw children really quite badly hurt. One got their knuckles broken, others were marked with bruises." They also said that, you know, with 300 children, there were only 2 toilets. It just wasn't a safe environment.
No, and it's not okay for a number of reasons. Namely, because what happens is you raise these children in a certain environment, and you're basically setting them up for failure later on, and basically setting them up for one option only, is to continue that way of life, right? So of course, if you take them out of school at such a young age, and then you kind of keep them isolated in your own world, what's going to happen, right? They have no choice but to continue that life, and if they don't, they're going to have trouble assimilating later on in society, getting jobs, things like that. So, you know, and the fact that they don't want to come out and publicly address this, or they'll destroy those records, just shows that, you know, they're scared of being branded as, let's say, anti-Semitic or something. So they'll abide by whatever they tell them to do. But you know, it raises a very, very, very interesting point. And you know, I think that, you know, no matter where you come from, no matter what country you live in, you should keep your traditions alive, right? If you're, let's say they are these Orthodox Jews, I don't know specifically how long they've been living, you know, in London, but let's say they're first or second generation. I think it's good to know where you came from and teach your children and keep that alive. But that should go hand in hand with the normal curriculum that's given out by the state in that school. That's very important to have both. You can't keep your children isolated. That's not good, you know. And it brings up that interesting debate, though. I mean, what if I'm just curious, one last point, you know, what if this was, let's say, the same situation but with, you know, Muslims, for example, and it was these like kind of homeschooled kind of Muslims things. Well, people would be labeling them as madrasas, and it would become this whole discussion about radical Islam and you know, brainwashing children. But when it's the other side, it seems, you know, they're going to destroy the evidence to make it seem like it's not happening. Well, that's interesting.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, I mean, because you should keep the faith alive. You should keep the religion alive, like you said. You should be able to teach it. But in a way, I mean, I don't know what's going on in the sense, I'm sure the religion isn't harmful, but like you said, if it was assumed, if they were a Muslim school, you would assume that. So
it's not harmful, even what they're doing here. It's setting them up for one way of life and one way of life
and one way only.
And you're living in a very secular country like England. Come on, you're going to set them up for a difficult time growing up.
Definitely, and it's actually anti-Semitic to not intervene, for the government to not intervene. So that's the hypocrisy of it all. I mean, this is happening, and we actually have 2 graphs I wanted to point out. It's just that, you know, the Jewish boys were shown to drop off at the age of 11 or 12 to hide the fact that they were being dropped off at age 13, to make it like less noticeable. Pretty much before their bar mitzvah at age 13, the parents would take the boys out of the school, but for the girls, they stayed because they felt the girls didn't need education. They could just, you know, take care of the house, and that's what their main duty. So those are the 2 charts that we showed. You could see the difference in how the girls were not taken out as opposed to the boys. So this is what's happening. I mean, unfortunately, if authorities don't step up, these unfortunate situations will keep going.